For over 3,000 years, the indigenous Sioux tribe enjoyed the beauty of the northern Great Plains. With over 300,000 tribal members living across 65 million acres of land, the Sioux tribe never fell short of natural resources, surrounded by mountainous regions, freshwater rivers, livestock, and luscious forests. However, this tranquil lifestyle soon came to an end, as the 17th of September, 1851 quickly approached. Alongside the 10,000 indigenous peoples, United States treaty commissioners, followed by government officials, flooded the mouth of Horse Creek, presenting an opportunity to the Sioux that would forever change the history of the United States' interaction with the indigenous peoples. Promising positive change, the Sioux tribe was urged into the signing of multiple treaties by the United States government. However, by facilitating this diplomatic exchange between both white settlers and the Sioux tribe, the United States' betrayal to former promises has only continued to instill false hope in the hearts of the indigenous peoples. Consequently, the Sioux have faced the crippling impacts of displacement and poverty. The United States' attempt to alleviate the damage with monetary compensation has only led to more debate regarding the struggle between land ownership. Since the independence of the United States, struggles have existed between the indigenous tribes and the government, an effect of clashing cultures and mass migration. The United States was unsure of how to characterize their relationship with the Sioux, as the Sioux fit no generic definition of a state or foreign nation. The United States labeled them domestic dependent nations, allowing for more effective communication between the indigenous peoples and the government. As independent political communities, the indigenous tribes would be able to create their own legal system, yet still remain subject to the paternalistic powers of the United States. The 1851 Treaty of Fort Laramie promised the Sioux protection from white settlers, as well as $50,000 worth of annual annuities, in return for the government's ability to establish posts and roads and facilitate peaceful interactions. Despite the occasional disruption, the 1851 Treaty of Fort Laramie had the possibility of acting as an effective model for continuing diplomacy. From 1851 to 1865, an era of tranquility remained. However, this idealized society soon fell prey to the hands of reality, as the Sioux began to recognize how they had signed off their culture and lives. Superficially, the diplomatic exchange between the government and the Sioux seemed fair and balanced, but a deeper look revealed the relationship to be marred by distrust and dishonesty, with the United States disenfranchising the Sioux while strengthening the power of the colonizing peoples. With over 10,000 tribal members speaking a variety of dialects, the lack of interpreters at the signing of the Fort Laramie Treaty led to precarious interactions. Only the United States government understood the terms of the treaty, so the foundation of this diplomatic exchange was built upon a lack of complete understanding by both parties. This hazardous foundation only became more fractional and dividing with time, as conflict increased with the cascading effect. Ignorant of the treaty's laws, multiple tribal members were unsupportive of the military posts being established in protected tribal land, protesting for their removal. Even worse, the United States began to gradually reduce protected Sioux lands, shrinking their territory slowly but surely. By 1864, the Fort Laramie Treaty was no longer being honored and was serving no purpose in the diplomatic exchange. Excuses declared by the United States piled up too high to continue to be justifiable. At last, government officials decided to make adjustments to the Fort Laramie Treaty. Adjustments that had proved to be unjust and immoral, facilitating more debate. As conflict between the Sioux and the government came to a climax, a congressional committee was formed in 1865, 14 years after the original signing of the Fort Laramie Treaty, to discuss the crumbling relationship. The number of migrants and white settlers expanding westward was increasing, and they were trampling through the preserved Sioux lands. As a result, a major adjustment of the treaty included the Sioux's unambiguous ownership of the 1.3 million acres of the Black Hills, totaling 60 million acres of designated land within South Dakota. As agreed by both parties involved in the agreement, the Sioux were not to be interfered with their territory. Although the Great Sioux Reservation experienced slight diminishment, the resources that came with the Black Hills were expansively abundant. The This diplomatic exchange offered equal opportunities for both the indigenous peoples and the United States government. The Black Hills provided plentiful resources, including a mountain range covered in lush forests, open prairies, and glistening waterfalls. However, once again, this oasis of protected serenity soon came to an end, in 1874. Gold had been found in the Black Hills, and a sudden influx of gold searchers flooded the sacred and protected land of the Sioux, oblivious to the boundaries set by the Fort Laramie Treaty. Sent by the United States government to find a location for a new Army fort, General George Armstrong Custer was to investigate the resources available in the Black Hills, still aware of the agreement once made with the Sioux. Further attention to the Black Hills continued to break the promises of security and honor the treaty had once offered the Sioux. With more tension, the United States government was now in dire need of a way to settle the chaos between the Sioux and the gold miners. However, the government decided to abandon the treaty and in 1877 displaced the Sioux completely, claiming the Black Hills for the United States. The government then proceeded to memorialize the founding fathers of our country by carving their faces upon the sacred land of the Sioux. Under the restraints of their categorization as a domestic dependent nation, the Sioux did not have the means to fight back against the injustices they suffered at the hands of the United States government. Oppressed and silenced, the Sioux have faced impoverishment and deprivation of resources, making it impossible to thrive like they once did. They have been displaced into small reservations in South Dakota, including the Cheyenne River Reservation and the Pine Ridge Reservation, some of the smallest and most impoverished places in the world.
We got a mean loss of identity here due to forced assimilation.
The government done a good job on us using some kind of cultural module called self-hate, where they had us ashamed of who we were.
Tribal members do not have the means to flourish. Their sacred land has been taken away, and they have been forced into the most geographically desolate places in the country. The Great Sioux Reservation was not merely land. It was a home rich with resources that allowed culture to exist, memories to be preserved, and future generations to live and remember. The Cheyenne River Reservation, one of the 6 reservations the Sioux were displaced into, has an 80% unemployment rate in addition to 3 to 7 suicide attempts a week, and drug abuse is a common struggle among tribal members. However, attempts by the United States government to alleviate the situation has only raised more debate. Their grand offer of $1.3 billion to the Sioux has raised questions about the morality of the United States actions. Whether they are correct or incorrect, members are still unwilling to accept the offer. Because although the number of zeros may seem impressive and ultimately forgivable, the Sioux claim that no amount of money will justify the hardships their tribe has faced.
Take that money and say, we will bless the stealing of our land, will be to accept spiritual poverty.
The land they once inhabited was not just territory, but the burial grounds of ancestors, the place of ancestral and flourishing culture, and the origin and home of memories of peace, the place where true Sioux culture resided.
This government has done everything it's can, stripped us of our language, our culture, our traditions, and our land and our water, and they thought that we would surrender.
To this day, they are still victims of manipulation by the United States government, still subject to an epitome of diplomatic failure and raging debate.
This is our land.